Thank you for holding this very important hearing. I'm no stranger to discrimination, hate speech, or threats of violence against my family and myself simply because of my identity. As a Black, visibly Muslim woman who came to this country as a refugee, I have dealt with racist, xenophobic, bigoted comments and threats all my life.
Before we get into it, hit that subscribe button and smash the like button right now, because today, you're about to hear a version of this story that mainstream media refuses to touch. What you saw in that hearing wasn't just a disagreement, it was a full-blown clash over what America even is anymore. And trust me, the truth behind it is even more shocking than you think. Welcome back to Congress Flash. Today, we're breaking down a congressional showdown that tells you everything about where the country is headed. On one side, we have Ilhan Omar painting America as a dark, oppressive place. On the other, you have voices like Candace Owens calling out the hypocrisy and holding the line for American values. And watching this video unfold, one thing became clear to me immediately. We are dealing with two completely different visions of this country, one that believes America is fundamentally good and worth defending, and another that insists America is broken, racist, and irredeemable unless it gets torn down and rebuilt from scratch.
First up, I've got to get a reaction from both of you about what Congressman Omar says about being an American. Watch.
Something that I get criticized for all the time. It's not what you think, so don't don't gasp. It is that I am anti-American because I criticize the United States. As an immigrant, I probably love this country more than anyone that is naturally born.
Candace.
I can't think of a single comment, and you can feel free to correct me, that any of them have said positive about America or Americans. They're here asking for radical reform on the basis that this country is fundamentally irredeemable. That is the message. And here what's problematic about the way that they're conveying their messages, they're actually falling into really bad stereotypes of what it means to be a person of color in this country. A really bad stereotype about Black Americans is that we're gangbangers, and that we're ignorant, and that we threaten people and we're violent. We have Ayanna Pressley tweeting to Kellyanne Conway, "Hi, Becky." Remember that racist pejorative that the media roundly ignored? Right. "Hi, Becky," if I called you Becky. Imagine if you called me Shaniqua. What would the media response be to that? And she said, "Keep my name out yo mouth." Could you, think about this. A congresswoman speaking to someone like that. Congress is not Bloods versus the Crips, okay? It's Republicans and Democrats coming together to try to come up with something that can make Americans feel like we are working towards a solution in this country. These women are doing the opposite.
They believe that America is an evil, racist, corrupt country at its core, and it must be completely remade.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In congressional hearings, the minority party gets to select its own witnesses. And of all the people that Republicans could have selected, they picked Candace Owens. I don't know Miss Owens. I'm not going to characterize her. I'm going to let her own words do the talking. So I'm going to play for you the first 30 seconds of a statement she made about Adolf Hitler.
I agree. I actually don't have any problems at all with the word nationalism. I think that it gets, the definition gets poisoned by elitists that actually want globalism. Globalism is what I don't want. So when you think about, whenever we say nationalism, the first thing people think about, at least in America, is Hitler. You know, he was a National Socialist, but if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. The problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. He wanted to globalize. He wanted everybody to be German, everybody to be speaking German.
All right, so my first question is to Ms. Hirschenoff. Ms. Owens said, quote, "If Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. The problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. So when people try to legitimize Adolf Hitler, does that feed into white nationalist ideology?"
Ilhan Omar opened the hearing by describing a lifetime of hatred and discrimination. And look, no one is denying her personal experiences. But here's where the problem starts. Every time she talks about America, it's through only one lens: oppression, failure, injustice, always, never a word about opportunity, freedom, generosity, never gratitude for a nation that took her in when she fled her home country. And then conservatives get labeled anti-immigrant for pointing that out. Give me a break. We are allowed to expect that elected officials love the country they represent. That's not bigotry. That's basic. Then Candace Owens enters the picture. And say what you want about her, but she brought something to that hearing that desperately needed to be said. She called—
It does, Mr. Liu. I know that Ms. Owens distanced herself from those comments later, but we expressed great concern over the original comments.
Great, thank you. So there's been a lot of talk today. I'd like to focus on actual policy responses that our government can do to try to mitigate the threat of white nationalism. I know that in my district in Los Angeles just last month, 2 swastikas were painted at Pan Pacific Park along with a trail of blood. I met with Jewish constituents in my district who mentioned that at their synagogues, they've all had to increase security. As you know, there is a nonprofit security grant program at the Department of Homeland Security. Do you believe it'd be worthwhile to increase funding to that program?
The ADL has, for establishment reasons, First Amendment reasons, been very cautious and wary of government funding to religious institutions. That being said, we well understand the fear and the safety. So I think that is something that has to be done very carefully in terms of what entanglement. I know in the place where in Westchester County where I live, the state and local governments provide a great deal of protection to the synagogue to which I belong. So I do understand, and I would like to work more with Congress, but I want to caution about where we entangle. This is a very difficult thing to do because when we're scared like this, of course we want money.
So that is a great point you make, and I want to note that this program would apply to mosques as well as synagogues, so it is not specific to the religion. But it is true, the First Amendment does affect all of these issues, including, for example, private sector companies to say whatever it is that they want. Now, I'd like to also talk about a second program, and this was one that I'm going to ask Ms. Clark about, and it has to do with the Trump administration wanting to cut a very specific office called the Community Relations Service Office in the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice. Can you first explain to American people what that office does and why it would be a bad idea to cut funding?
She called out the squad for leaning into stereotypes while pretending they're fighting them. She highlighted how Ayanna Pressley could call Kellyanne Conway Becky without the media blinking. But if the roles were reversed, the outrage would be nuclear. And the double standard doesn't stop there. When a clip of Owen's discussing nationalism and Hitler resurfaced, the left pounced. They twisted her words, deliberately ignoring her broader argument about globalism and national identity. Instead of addressing what she actually meant, they weaponized a smear to paint her as an extremist. But here's what got buried in all the drama: the real threats facing communities, swastikas in Los Angeles parks, synagogues and mosques increasing security, local faith communities asking, begging for protection. This isn't theoretical, it's happening right now, but instead of focusing on solutions, the left wants to debate labels. Then we watch lawmakers argue whether religious institutions should receive federal security funding at all. Meanwhile, the same people criticizing America's supposed hate problem want to cut the very programs designed to address and de-escalate civil rights conflicts. The math doesn't add up. This entire hearing was a perfect snapshot of America's divide. Is patriotism about defending your country or constantly tearing it down? Are we striving for improvement or are we just wallowing in our flaws? I'll tell you where I stand. Patriotism means loving your country enough to defend it from both outside threats and internal narratives that aim to weaken it. It means acknowledging flaws but refusing to define the entire nation by them. It means protecting your communities, your culture, and your values. And if that makes someone like me or Candace Owens a villain in the eyes of the squad, then so be it. Because the alternative is to stay silent while a movement tries to convince Americans that their own country is unworthy of pride. And I'm not playing along. If you're someone who still believes America is worth defending, do not leave this video without subscribing. Hit that like button, comment your thoughts, and share this with someone who needs to hear the truth. Congress Flash is here to cut through the noise, and trust me, we are just getting started. Stay sharp, stay informed, and stay proud.